Hello, and welcome to Pragmatic Live, Pragmatic Marketing's webinar and podcast series where we tackle the biggest challenges facing today's product teams. Today's topic is one we hear companies of all shapes and sizes struggle with. Hardware, software, consumer goods, enterprise solutions, they all want to ensure that the hard work that goes into the product and into the go-to-market plans isn't wasted because of a bad pricing strategy. But before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. First, a recording of this webinar and a copy of the slides will be available afterwards. You'll be able to access them by the end of the day at pragmaticmarketing.com/live. Second, questions. We love questions. If you look to the left of your screen, you'll see a chat box. Feel free to enter any and all questions you have for Mark in that box. We'll work hard to get through as many of those questions throughout the presentation as we can and at the end. For those of you not aware of us until today, welcome to the Pragmatic Marketing family. We are the leading authority on product management and product marketing. We have trained over 7,000 companies in 26 countries. In fact, just last November, we hit our 100,000th attendee. But enough about us. Let's introduce today's presenter, Mark Stiving. Mark holds a PhD from Berkeley, is a pragmatic instructor, and a former professor at Ohio State. He eats, breathes, and dreams about pricing, and you can also find him writing about it quite regularly on his blog, pragmaticpricing.com. So without further ado, here's Mark.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate that. So let's start off with this question, what is pricing? Because it's actually a pretty difficult question for us to try to address. In fact, I tell a lot of people, I've told my family I'm a pricing expert, and they really don't know what I do. The other day, my mother introduced me, and she said, here's my son, Mark. He's really good at the Price is Right. So understanding what pricing is kind of tricky. Here are 20 characteristics or adjectives that describe pricing. And as we look through these, they're pretty interesting. I won't touch on all of them, but let me touch on a few that I find pretty interesting and people often ask about. The first, pricing is grading. And this one is really interesting because of the fact that, well, let me tell a story. I was an MBA student, and a professor of mine at the very end of the semester, he said to us, everybody take out a piece of paper and write your name on it, and now give yourself a grade. What grade do you think you deserve in this class? And if I agree with you, you can have it, and if I don't agree, then you can't have that grade. If you think about it, pricing is exactly the same thing. We spend a lot of time and energy creating great products, marketing great products, and in the end, we have to put a price on them. And that's just like me putting a grade on myself. And just like my professor got to decide if I got that grade, our customers get to decide if we deserve that price or not. So the better we do our job, the better the price, the higher the grade that we get. Pricing is powerful, that one in the upper left-hand corner, hugely important. We find that really small improvements in pricing can have huge impact in profitability for a corporation. So thinking about just a little 1%, how can I get a little percent better here and there, turns into major profitability improvement to the bottom line. Let's take a look at pricing as secret, because people often ask me, is pricing secret, or what is that one about? And it turns out that we know pricing's not secret. We see it on the web page, we see it in retail outlets, we see pricing published everywhere. But what we usually see published are only the best or the highest prices, people's list prices. Companies hide their best pricing because they don't want their competitors to know what it is, and they certainly don't want all of their customers to know what the best possible price is. So pricing is certainly secret. It's emotional. Boy, think about the outrage that happened back when Netflix changed their pricing model and everybody got all upset. But pricing has this ability to be really emotional with our customers. And how many times do we get into arguments or fights inside our company over what pricing strategies we should use or what pricing levels we should use? And pricing is really emotional. Of course, I think it's fun, that lower left-hand corner one. But as I look at the lower right-hand corner, so pricing is specific, That's the one that I want to end on this slide with. No matter what company I talk with, no matter what the situation is, we find that every company, every product, every industry has different pricing problems. So there isn't this generic formula, here's how you go price. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about several concepts, several fundamental takeaways that you'll get, and those are applicable to almost every single company, almost every single product. So as we think about the examples, most of the examples you're going to see today are B2C type examples, business to consumer, and that's because they resonate well with us. They're easy for us to understand and listen to. But everything we talk about today is equally applicable to business examples. Now, as we think about these 20 different characteristics here, these are all nice and they describe what pricing is, but in truth, I could describe pricing with a single phrase, and that is, pricing is that thing that captures value. Everything you do as a company, 99% of what you do as a company, is there to create value. You are creating great products, you're marketing those products, you're selling those products. Everything you're doing is trying to convince our customers and build value for our customers. Pricing is that one thing that's able to go out and capture all of that value that we create. So let's think about how companies do pricing today. Many companies do what we call cost plus pricing, and that is where we look at what the cost is to build this or to create this product, and then we add a margin to that, and that's the price we want to set. Here's an example of what we would think of as great cost plus pricing, because think about what happens to the price of gasoline when we hear that the price of oil is gone up. The price of gas goes up. And in fact, it goes up that exact same day, usually. And so that feels a lot like cost plus pricing. Cost of oil goes up, cost of gas goes up. On the other hand, there are other examples like here, Microsoft Office Home and Business. This is 2010 picture. But we could buy this and have it delivered directly to our computer, and it only costs $279.95. Wow. What do you think it cost Microsoft to actually deliver that to your computer? Really close to zero. So they're not charging based on what it costs to build that next unit. They're charging based on what they think they can get you to pay for it. Similarly, what about the movie theaters? We pay $10, $11, $12 a head to go in to see a movie. What's the difference in cost to the movie theater if the seat is empty or if somebody's sitting in that seat? Almost none. So if you think about it, they're not using cost plus pricing either. They're using how much do I think I can get my customers to pay. And then, of course, pharmaceuticals, drugs. These things, they cost pennies or maybe dimes to manufacture, and they often sell for tens, if not hundreds of dollars a piece. They're not doing cost plus pricing. They're using a technique that says how much is it worth to our customers, and that's how much we want to be able to get our customers to pay. So we call this value-based pricing. How much value are our customers getting from the products that we build? And that's how we should be thinking about our pricing. Can we price based on the value of what our customers receive? Now, when we think about value and value-based pricing, it's not consistent. It changes over time. It changes based on circumstances. It changes based on individuals. Here we see an example where we could go buy popcorn at the movie theaters and pay $6 for a small popcorn. Alternatively, we could go to Ace Hardware and get popcorn for free. You'll see that there's a huge difference in people's willingness to pay for popcorn at Ace Hardware versus at the movie theater. And so there's also this huge difference in terms of how much they charge. So we're going to come up with a few rules and a few key takeaways. And this first key takeaway I want you to think about is always use value-based pricing. We're not going to do cost-plus pricing, or some people do competitor-based pricing where they're just charging what their competitors are charge. Instead, we want to consciously think, how much are our customers willing to pay? And that's what we should be thinking about when we set our prices. So now the question you want to ask is, well, how do I know what our customers are willing to pay? And it turns out that before we can answer that question, we want to think clearly about what is willingness to pay and where does that come from. And we think of this concept of value. People get value, and the amount of value they get is what they're going to be willing to pay. So typically, whenever we make, our customers certainly, but whenever we make decisions to buy something, we almost always make these two different decisions. Will I, and which one? Will I is, am I going to buy something in this product category? So will I purchase something? And then, if yes, once I've said yes, I'm going to purchase something, then we go about and try to guess or figure out which one are we actually going to purchase. It turns out people's price sensitivity and the way they think about price is very different based on if they're making the will I decision or they're making the which one decision. Here's an example of bungee jumping. And typically when I do a presentation like this, and let's say that I have a room full of 100 people, I'll ask the 100 people how many people have been bungee jumping, and usually 2 or 3 will raise their hands. And then I'll come back and I'll ask, okay, so imagine that you're at a local fair, and there's this huge, really sturdy crane there, and on the sign of this crane it says, bungee jumping, $100. How many people are going to go? And at most, I'll get 2 people raising their hand. Then I ask the question again. So imagine you go to this local fair, and there's this huge, sturdy crane there. And on this crane, there's a sign that says bungee jumping, $75. Who wants to go? And usually, it's the same 2 people. And there's a really important point there. It isn't price that's driving you to decide, am I going to go bungee jumping or not? Going bungee jumping is a will-I type decision. People are saying, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? And price is not the driving factor. Here's another example. This is a picture of a guy's car, and you know this is a guy's car because a lady would never do this to her car. But no matter how low in price Alpine stereos go, this person is never going to put an Alpine stereo in this car. So as far as their will-I decision is concerned, they're not going to buy a new car stereo. They've solved the problem. They're not price sensitive. Watch this for a great example of a will-I type product.
There's a lot of margin in selling a $2 jar of cashews for $8. Premium pricing. The grail we all seek. But to earn it, you must satisfy a need at just the right moment. Who's going to help you do that? Not cheap. IBM. Innovation for profit.
And so the lesson we want to take away from that is that when our customers are making the will-I type decision, they're not very price sensitive. And sometimes we even have products like bungee jumping or like cashews at the hotel room where they only make a will-I decision and then they purchase. They never move on to making that will-I decision. However, when companies make the will or customers make the will-I which one decision, then suddenly price becomes a really important factor to them. My brother bought his first flat panel TV set probably 3 or 4 years ago now. And before that, it didn't matter what happened to the price on these TVs. They could go down, they'd be put on huge sales. Just didn't matter. He wasn't going to buy one. And then one day he said, you know, I think I'm going to buy a flat panel TV. Well, what do you think he did? At that point in time, he started searching best buy ads. He's looking for the best price. He's trading off how big of a screen do I want versus what's it going to cost me to get it, which technologies do I use, but price became a really important factor to him at that point in time. And so whenever our customers are making a which one decision, price has a powerful impact to us. And it turns out that most of the time, our customers are making a which one decision when they buy our products. And so price is really important in those situations. Let's see how people use price when they're making their decisions for a second. Here we see a can of, or a set of green beans. And imagine that you walk into your local grocery store. Here we have Safeway. And Safeway has the store brand, Safeway Select. And you have a choice. You can choose between buying Del Monte green beans for $1.69, or you could buy Safeway Select green beans for $1.49, the store brand. So Del Monte at $1.69, Safeway Select at $1.49. Let me go ahead and ask you guys to give me the answer. Which one would you choose? By the way, there's no right or wrong answer, but which would you choose if you were going to choose between Del Monte and Safeway Select? Look at that. It's almost perfectly evenly distributed between the two. 121 to 123. Yes. So there's a lesson here. Those of you who are going to buy Del Monte green beans for a second, would you type into the chat bar for a second some reasons why you were going to buy Del Monte green beans? Why you would choose Del Monte over the Safeway Select? Okay, so we see brand name, of course. It's quality. They trust the brand. They assume it's going to be better quality. It's proven. Perception of higher quality. Excellent. Excellent. I've actually had someone in one of my classes say, when I have company over, I don't want them to see that I serve them Safeway Select. And I'm kind of wondering why they would serve them canned green beans if they had company coming over. Okay, it's not worth the 20 cents for the store brand. Okay, so for those of you who bought or selected the Safeway Select, in the chat bar, would you type in, why is it that you chose Safeway Select? It's a commodity, no discernible difference, they're just green beans, store brand's proven to have the same quality, savings greater than 50%, 15%, cheap, comes from the same place, most likely, right? Excellent. So these are all great answers. And what's fascinating is that there isn't a right or wrong answer. These are what your perceptions are. These are the things that you believe to be true. But let's talk about how you made the decision. What every single one of you did was you said, Del Monte is $1.69, Safeway Select is $1.49. The difference is 20 cents. Is Del Monte worth 20 cents more than Safeway Select? So the question becomes, is it worth 20 cents more? Those who said, yes, it's worth 20 cents more, they came up with features and attributes and characteristics where they said, these are the things about Del Monte that I like and it's worth 20 cents. So brand name, image, quality, those were all worth 20 cents. For those people who said it wasn't worth 20 cents, they said, look, there wasn't enough differentiation. There wasn't enough between the Del Monte and the Safeway Select in order to make a difference. That's the same way our customers make decisions about our products. They look at the price of our product, they look at the price of our competitors' products, and they say, hey, is it worth the difference? Would I pay more for our product if we're charging more? And so let's take a look at this ad and see what Apple is telling us.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
I'm a PC.
Ready to get started?
Oh, not quite. Got a lot to do. What's your big plan?
I might make a home movie or maybe create a website, try out my built-in camera. I can do it all right out of the box, so what about you?
Well, first I got to download those new drivers, and I got to erase the trial software that came on my hard drive.
Sweet.
Then I've got a lot of manuals to read.
You know, it sounds like you have a lot of stuff to do before you do any stuff, so I'm just going to get started because I'm kind of excited. Let me know when you're ready.
Actually, the rest of me's in some other boxes, so I'll meet up with you later.
I got one chat message that says you could not hear the video. Is that true for everybody? Rebecca, do you have any comments on that or thoughts on that?
We are looking into it right now. Looks like some can and can't. Make sure that the speakers on your computer are not muted. It will come through your computer versus through the phone line. That seems to be what it was.
Okay, got it. So try unmuting the computer. Perfect. If you're curious, what that video just showed us was, now let's watch it one more time, for those of you who didn't hear it.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
I'm a PC.
Ready to get started?
Oh, not quite. Got a lot to do. What's your big plan?
I might make a home movie or maybe create a website, try out my built-in camera. I can do it all right out of the box, so what about you?
Well, first I got to download those new drivers, and I got to erase the trial software that came on my hard drive.
Sweet.
And I've got a lot of manuals to read.
You know, it sounds like you have a lot of stuff to do before you do any stuff, so I'm just going to get started because I'm kind of excited. Let me know when you're ready.
Actually, the rest of me's in some other boxes, so I'll meet up with you later.
So what Apple's doing in this advertisement is they're pointing out all of the ways that Apple computers are better than IBM computers or PC computers are at the time. And so this is one of the ways that they're able to charge such a higher price over a PC, and that is that they've built in differentiation, and they let us know what that differentiation is. And so if we think about that, the key here is that value is differentiation. If we want to be able to charge more than our competitors charge, we need to be able to create products that are better than what our competitors are selling. However, it isn't just differentiation. Let me ask you to think about Mac versus PC again. And just in your mind, think of the things about a Mac that are better than a PC. We just heard easy setup, but there are probably other things that you can think of that you've heard over time where you say, hey, these are better on a Mac than they are on a PC. And now watch this.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
And I'm a PC.
I'm afraid to ask.
Well, I was sitting on my desk.
Yeah.
Someone walked by, carelessly tripped over my power cord, yanked me straight down to the ground. Bam!
Yikes. MacBooks come with this power cord that connects magnetically, so when it gets pulled, it just pops right off. Everything's just kind of thought out, you know, like the tiny built-in eyesight
My
camera.
life is flashing before my eyes. I see a
Okay.
sunset in a field of beautiful wheat.
Isn't that your screensaver?
Yeah.
So how many people thought about that little power cord that goes and it just pops out easily on the Mac? Usually almost nobody thinks of that when you're saying what's good about a Mac versus a PC. And it turns out that rarely do people, and so what Apple's doing for us is they're making sure we understand what those differences are, because it's perceived differences. If our customers don't understand that we have differences, then we can't charge more for it. In fact, if we go back and think about our green bean example that we were using earlier, those of you who chose Del Monte had perceptions that were different than those of you who chose Safeway Select. And so it's all about perception, and it isn't about necessarily what we actually build. And so when we think about value, value really is perceived differentiation. How much do our customers think our product is better than our competition's? So what we want to be doing as pricing people is making sure that as a company we're creating real live differentiation, that we're out finding differentiation. Oftentimes our customers tell us things about our products that are different and better than our competitors. So let's make sure that we're out looking for that and finding it. And then finally, are we communicating that? Are we telling people what our differentiation is so that when we really build it in, we get our customers to perceive it and understand that that's true? And so our key takeaway number one, we want to always use value-based pricing. Charge what our customers are willing to pay.
Hey Mark, we got a couple of questions on this first section here, and one of them was whether you could provide some B2B examples of the Will I and Which One products.
Sure. So the hard ones are will I, because in the world of which one, anytime you have a competitor, you're thinking of, okay, I've got a which one type decision that's going on, because my customers are making decisions between me and a competitor. They're making a which one decision. Will I products are oftentimes a little trickier, but think of products that when we first release a brand new product and we're the only ones with the technology, so we're first to market, that is a will I type decision. Other will I type decisions, oftentimes we can build one product. So let's say that we are Oracle and we've sold a platform, and now we want to sell upgrades, we want to sell additional capabilities. Those additional capabilities and upgrades, those are all will I type decisions, because people aren't going to go switch out platforms. They only want to buy things that are compatible with the platform that they have today. So there's a couple quick and easy examples for the will I stuff.
Excellent. And someone else asked if you were going to discuss how to determine what a customer is willing to pay. Is that through testing or another means?
Yeah, today in the seminar, in the half-hour seminar, we're not going to talk about that. At the very end, we'll talk briefly about a new pricing course we put together, and we do talk about how to measure what customers are willing to pay in that pricing course.
Excellent. And we had 4 people just ask, how do you determine what someone is willing to pay when it is a new product to market?
Well, that is the absolute hardest thing to do in the space. Here's a couple hints on some things you can do. First, do a Google search on what's called the Van Westendorp's price sensitivity meter. So that'll give you a hint on something that you might be able to do. It's a survey methodology. There's another survey methodology called monadic experiments that you can use, where you're simply asking people, would you pay this price? And you're getting yes or no, or how likely are you on a 1 to 7 scale to pay this price? And then you're getting a feeling for what the market would be willing to bear for it. But I have to say, it's really hard to do this right, really hard.
Excellent. All right, we're getting some more questions, but I think if we move forward, and then we'll pick some up at the end.
Okay, sounds good. The next section we're going to talk about is price segmentation. And so to introduce price segmentation, let's take a look at this picture. And I often ask my seminars when I'm doing these in live, of these 3 people that you see, which one would pay the most for a video game? And the answer is the guy on the right. And then we'd ask, well, who probably pays most for a haircut? And the answer is usually the lady in the middle. And so then who would pay most for a briefcase? It's probably the guy on the left. But the lesson here is that different people are willing to pay different amounts. So wouldn't it be great if there were ways that we could charge different people different prices based on their value? And so that's going to be our key takeaway number 2. Charge less to customers who are only willing to pay less, because we still want to win them as customers, but charge more to customers who are willing to pay more. In essence, what we're trying to do is this. If we can identify who are the rich people, we want them to pay more than everybody else. And so the hard question is it fair? Is it fair? And this is a tough one by far. And it turns out that it really is fair in many situations. For example, when you get on an airplane, you probably didn't pay the same price as almost anybody else in that airplane for the seat that you're in. So airlines do this all the time. We're going to see a bunch of different examples as we go through this section on places where people do price segment. And in fact, we use the movie theater example a lot when we think about price segmentation, just because it's easy for us to think about. As we go through, there are really 4 main ways that we can charge different customers different prices. And those are based on, what do I know about my customer and what are those characteristics? what do I know about the transaction that's happening and information that I can gather at the time of the transaction? Are there some behaviors that I can put in place that discriminate or separate the people who have a high willingness to pay from a low willingness to pay? And then finally, how do I use my products themselves to figure out which ones are willing to pay more and which ones are willing to pay less? So let's go through each one of these as a quick example. And we'll use the movie theater example as we go through. Starting with customer characteristics. If you and I want to go to the movie theater, assuming that you're just like me and a normal adult, we pay $11 to go to the movie theater here. However, for a senior, we get in for only $10. And children get in for $8. What the movie theater is doing here is they're looking at the characteristics of the customer, and they're saying, based on this characteristic, here's how much we're going to charge you. So they think there's a different willingness to pay based on those characteristics. In the world of B2B, we often see this in terms of we charge different industries different prices, or maybe we charge different prices in different regions because we know where the companies are coming from. So these are just looking at our customers, seeing what characteristics they have, and then saying this is the price for that characteristic because I know who's willing to pay more and who's willing to pay less on an average basis. We can also look at information that happens at the time of the transaction. For example, if we want to go see that movie at nighttime, we'd see it at $11. We'd pay $11. If we're willing to go in the afternoon, we can get in for $9. Or if we're going to go early in the morning, then we can get in for only $6. So by understanding the transaction and what's happening at the transaction level, we can understand that people have different willingnesses to pay and charge different prices based on the transaction information. One of my favorite examples of this transaction information, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, the San Francisco Giants started this, and it's called dynamic pricing. But you walk up to the window to buy a same-day ticket at the San Francisco Giants, and it's a different price based on if it's sunny outside or if it's raining. And obviously it's much less expensive if it's raining because people are much less willing to pay to go to the baseball games. So simply understanding characteristics of the transaction help us often when we're trying to decide who has a higher willingness to pay and a lower willingness to pay. One example of this that we often see in the B2B type world is volume-based pricing, where customers who have who are buying a lot tend to have a much higher price sensitivity, and so they fight harder for good pricing, and that's why we end up giving them much better prices on the volume level. Just sticking with the movie theater example, we can also segment based on price. So here you can see, we can go and see the movie at $11. Or for an extra $5, we can see it in 3D. For an extra $6, we could see it in IMAX. And for an extra $7, we could see it in 3D IMAX. So simply by creating a product strategy, we can help people who have a really high price sensitivity and they're only going to pay as little as possible. They'll go in and see it at $11. But people who are not very price sensitive would be much more willing to pay that $7 for an IMAX 3D. And so by having those different products available, we're able to get different price levels from different types of customers. And then the last technique we talked about is what we call behaviors. Behaviors is really all about, can I put a hurdle up in front of somebody to make them prove to me that they're price sensitive? Think about what a coupon really is. A coupon is, someone who's using a coupon is saying, I'm price sensitive. I'm proving that I'm price sensitive. Because an individual who uses a coupon has to spend the time to A, find the coupon, clip it out, put it in their wallet or their purse, and carry it around with them. When they get to the right store, remember to pull it out at the cash register and give it to the cashier and spend an extra few seconds dealing with the whole coupon piece. Only people who are price sensitive use coupons from that perspective. And so if you think about it, what a coupon really is is somebody trading a tiny piece of their life for a better price. We're forcing them to jump some hurdle to say to us, I really am price sensitive. But by the way, there's nothing wrong with trading a piece of life for a better price. We do this every day. It's called a job. So it's not that that's a bad thing. One of my favorite examples of behaviors, by the way, is if you go to some relatively large department stores. Macy's is one of my favorites. Go to Macy's and pick something up, and when you go to buy it, ask for a discount. And simply asking for a discount, most of the time you'll get it. And the reason is you're proving to them that you're price sensitive. Not many people walk up and ask for a discount. So try that, and you'll find that it probably works. So our key takeaway number 2, we want to make sure we're charging less to customers who are only willing to pay less and charge more to customers who are willing to pay more.
Excellent, Mark. And a couple other questions that came in on this section. One, someone was wondering if you could share any insight about products that are sold through multiple channels. For instance, one way direct to clients and another through a reseller. Is there a standard model that guides pricing in that scenario?
It's very different based on the industry and the situation, what the distribution model looks like. However, there's a standard rule of thumb, which is when we're selling direct, let's say we're going to sell direct online through the web to customers, the pricing that we charge direct has to be the highest prices that we sell. And the reason for that is we don't want to compete with our distribution channel. So in most cases, we set a list price, we sell at list price, we tell our distributors what the list price is, and then we sell to our distributors at some discount below that list price. What ends up happening is if we decide that we're going to sell to end customers at a price really close to what we sell our distributors for, then we end up losing our distribution channel because they're not willing to spend time, energy selling our product at a price higher than people could buy it from us directly. And they'll find other products to go sell instead of ours.
Great. And then we have several who asked if they could share some you could share some B2B examples of how behavior can affect the price point, sort of the B2B equivalent of a coupon.
The B2B equivalent of a coupon, if you think about, I like to think in terms of what are my costs to serve my customers. And so I might have payment terms, almost as a behavior. Are you willing to pay me faster in order to get these better terms? But oftentimes when I think of my cost to serve, I might have high shipping costs, I might have high warranty, I've got long warranty periods. Anytime I could take some of that away in order to give them a better price, in essence what I'm forcing them to say to me is, hey, I'm a price sensitive customer, and that's what it's going to take for me to, or I'm going to do that in order to prove to you I really am price sensitive. And that might even fit better when we talk in this next section. We're going to talk a little bit about good, better, best. And we can think about people who are willing to step down to the good level are also really saying to us, hey, we're price sensitive and this is a behavior I'm willing to take, I'm willing to exhibit.
Excellent. All right, let's move along. We've got a couple more questions for later in the end.
Okay. This last section we're going to talk about has to do with portfolios and portfolios of products. And we think of portfolios in two different pieces, versions and complements. Versions are essentially saying I'm going to build two different versions or multiple different versions, and I'm hoping my customers buy one of those different versions from me. Where complements are saying, hey, I'm going to build something, and then I want to sell more things on top of that. So here's the McDonald's price board that we actually saw, and you'll notice at the very top that a double cheeseburger costs $1. And yet, if we go and look down towards the middle on the right, a cheeseburger is only 99 cents. I'm sorry, a cheeseburger is $1.09. Pretty fascinating. And the question is, why is that? Well, probably if you walk into McDonald's and you normally buy a cheeseburger, you probably are just going to walk in and buy a cheeseburger. You're not going to search the board and say, hey, is there something at a lower price? Can I get a double cheeseburger at a better price? However, odds are really good that McDonald's has on the outside of their wall this big sign that says double cheeseburgers 99 cents or double cheeseburgers $1. And they invite people to come in to their store because they're selling that double cheeseburger at $1. And what's important to know is for the last 10 years or so, McDonald's loses money on every double cheeseburger they sell. You may know about 5 years ago they switched to McDouble, so that just got rid of one piece of cheese. But now they're even losing money on every McDouble they sell at $1. But don't feel sorry for McDonald's, because every time you buy a soda from them for $1.89, that costs them 15 cents to make. And so soft drinks and fries, those are those complementary products. If I can get you into McDonald's at a double cheeseburger, then I can make much more money selling you complementary products. And so we want to think about that. How can we use our product portfolio to help us make money as we sell to our customers? And so I love this cartoon. This is a great example of how understanding our portfolio and how it interacts with our customers can help us gain more revenue, gain more money. And so probably the first and most important thing to remember when we think about portfolios is this concept of good, better, best. If you know exactly what you want, if you're an expert in a product line, you go look at a product line and you buy the thing that meets your needs. However, most of the time, we don't know exactly what we want or exactly what we need. I've bought several eye devices over the course of the last 7 years or so, and almost every time, I buy the one in the middle. And there's an important reason for that. People who buy the one that's the good, the least expensive one, they typically buy it because they're struggling to get into the product category. They're very price sensitive. And they want the functionality, but they want to get it at the lowest possible price. People who are not price sensitive at all, they just buy the best because they know or they don't want to ever feel like they got the wrong thing, and they know that they've got the best. All the rest of us, when we're uncertain, we buy the one in the middle. And so having this good, better, best strategy helps people make decisions, especially people who are uncertain. So we want to think hard about how do we create good, better, best strategies. Another reason to have good, better, best is a confused mind doesn't purchase. When we think about, and when we give our customers or our marketplace way too many options to choose from, they have a hard time making a decision, and when they can't make that decision, they just don't buy something. And so in the end, if we have this ability to simplify their decision process with a good, better, best type strategy, then it's much more likely that they're going to make a purchase decision and actually buy something. Another thing along this lines of versioning is a concept called anchoring. And I really like anchoring because of it's just fun. Here you see this is a Chevy's. I took these pictures at a Chevy's restaurant, and you can buy a Cadillac Margarita for $7.75, a top shelf for $8.95, a Dos Patrones for $9.75. Great, good, better, best strategy. And in fact, it costs Chevy's very little more to make the Dos Patrones than it does to make the Cadillac Margarita. But what's funny is when you scroll down to the bottom of this page, here they have the High Roller Rita for $30. Who's going to buy a $30 margarita from Chevy's? So maybe someone who's on an expense account, maybe someone who's trying to impress their friends, not very many people. But the important thing is by having that $30 High Roller Rita there, Chevy sells more of their $9.75, the Dos Patrones margaritas. So having a really high-end product sitting out there that you may never sell, or you may sell only a few of, what it ends up doing is it ends up showing that you're a high-quality manufacturer or supplier, and it brings more of your customers into the high-end type products. So let's switch from versions into complements for a few minutes. When we think about complements, we're thinking about how do I get someone to buy something from me And then how do I make even more money from them? So think about that popcorn at the movie theater example that we used before. We pay $6, $7, $8, and we saw that was a will-I type decision. Because once I'm in the movie theater, I don't get to decide, hey, am I going to go to Ace Hardware and get free popcorn? I get to decide, am I going to buy popcorn here or not? It's a will-I type decision. So oftentimes, if we can get people to buy into our which one, so in this case, the which one would be which movie theater am I going to go to? When we can get people to buy into our which one, then we have this ability to sell more things to them, and they're less price sensitive as they're buying those other things because they're making will-I type decisions, not which one type decisions. Another example of this, I was in a diner in Bradenton, Florida, and I saw these on the table. These are advertisements on the table, and I asked the waitress, so how much does one of these ads cost? And they cost between $75 and $300 a piece. They're under the acrylic on the table, and they'll stay there for about 3 years. But the point is, the diner has all this attention from their customers. It's something else they can sell because they've already bought or they've already won that attention. So what else can we sell because other people can't make it, right? Because we've already got the attention from our customers. And when we're thinking about compliments, probably one of the most important ones that we want to make sure we understand, especially in the software world, is this concept called freemiums. Freemiums, as most of you probably know, is this concept that says, I'm going to give away a free version of my software. I want a bunch of people to use it, and then I'm going to sell small upgrades to it. And I want some percentage to pay for my upgraded or an improved version. I like to think of LinkedIn as a great example of a freemium, where most of us have free LinkedIn accounts and we get real life value from it, and yet some people pay to have a better service or to have more capabilities on LinkedIn than others do. So the rules that we think of when we have freemium type products is we want to make sure we have a low cost to serve, because we're going to give away a bunch of this for free. We want to make sure that we're offering real value for free. If we go back to LinkedIn, we all have free LinkedIn accounts and we get real life value from it. So it isn't them, being upset or not giving us value. But when they have upgrades, they have to be valuable to some segments. And in this case, we can make them valuable to several different segments. Typically, it's recruiters and job seekers and salespeople. This next one, network effects, are great if you can have network effects with your freemium type products. A network effect is an effect that says the more other people have something, the more valuable it is to each of the individuals who have it. The example I like to use here is a telephone. Imagine for a second that you were the very first person to ever own a telephone. Who would you call? And so if you can build network effects, like LinkedIn has a bunch of network effects, then it's ideal for freemium type because you're trying to build that network really fast and big. And the last bullet I'll give you is let's make sure when we're doing freemium business models that we're realistic and we understand that we're probably only going to get 1% to 2% of those to upgrade, sometimes up to 5%. But it's really hard to get a ton of people to do high conversion rates. So don't plan on high numbers if you're going to put that into your business plan. And so when we think about our key takeaway number 3, we want to make sure that we're building a product portfolio and we're understanding what those versions are, how they play together, and what the complements are. Is it possible that I can give something away so that I can get people to come in and buy something else from me? And so as a quick, Rebecca, I'll leave that to you before we do the summary.
Okay, we did get a couple of good questions. One, I know you're going to love, is how important is it to have product level cost when using value-based pricing?
So cost is a really interesting problem when we're dealing with pricing, because if you have a hardware product, oftentimes you're thinking a lot about, am I making enough margin on my product? And I want to ask you to think about it in the following way. Start with saying, how much are my customers willing to pay? What's the price I think I could get for this? And then, if you find your product costs are so high that the price you can get for it, you're not getting enough margin as a company, then don't be in that business, right? Leave that business. You could also think of it on an individual deal-by-deal basis, where I know what my cost is for this product, and I've got a salesperson who's come in and said, hey, I can sell a whole bunch of these at this price. Understanding cost lets us say, do we want to accept this piece of business? So we want to know our costs because it helps us make good business decisions, but knowing our costs doesn't help us set pricing. The only thing we should be thinking of when we think about our pricing is how much are our customers willing to pay.
Excellent. I knew you'd like that one. And then here's another good question. Isn't the pricing motivator a bit different for consumers who are spending their own money and B2B where the buyer is spending someone else's money?
Boy, believe it or not, I've never had that question asked before. And I would say yes, it is to some extent, but the big difference that I see between B2C and B2B type buyers are people who are in B2C. We typically have a lot of taste issues. There's fashion, things like that are going on. And in B2B, we don't see a lot of fashion type issues. It's much more functionality. And usually we want to try to prove ROI when we're doing B2B type business and B2B type sales. So am I making somebody more money than they're spending for our products? When it comes to individuals making decisions to buy things, though, in the end, they're making decisions in two respects. One is, am I making the right decision for my company? And number two, and probably the even bigger decision, am I making myself look good or bad as I make this purchase decision? And so it's still very personal to people that are making these decisions. They don't want to make decisions. They don't want to look bad. So it's very similar from that perspective.
Excellent. And then someone asked if you could talk a little bit about the difference in pricing strategies for a subscription product versus a one-time buy.
Sure. Subscription products, the thing that you want to think about really hard is your lifetime value of your customer. Because the question then becomes, how long do I get to keep my customer for? Whenever we're thinking about a one-time buy, am I going to be able to sell something else? Am I going to have complementary products, or is it just a one and done and I've sold it and I'm out of there now? A lot of the things we've talked about apply to both, but the overriding factor when we start talking about subscriptions or repeat purchases, things that are consumables, anything that's like that, is we really want to focus on the lifetime value of the customer. So how is it that we can win those customers and then not lose them over time? One of the things I talk a lot about to people who ask the question is how to raise prices. And raising prices when you're doing these one-time buy type issues is pretty simple, because if I've never bought it before, I don't know what the price used to be, so therefore I'm going to raise prices and I'll pay more for it, and I didn't even know it. For a subscription type service, though, it's really challenging to start raising prices. Let's go back to that Netflix example and see what happened to Reed Hastings when he tried to raise those prices. But when we think about that, we can think of other ways of how do we raise prices without losing those customers. And one strategy, of course, is to not raise prices on existing customers, but only raise prices on new customers that are coming in. But in the end, the number one thing to think about, or a really important thing to think about, is that lifetime value of the customer.
Excellent. And then, let's see what's in. We have quite a few coming in. Someone asked a little bit about how much competitive pricing should influence your own pricing strategy.
Competitors' pricing has to influence your pricing in the following sense. If we go back to the Del Monte versus Safeway Select example, Del Monte is going to set their price based on what Safeway Select is pricing, or vice versa. But in the end, Del Monte says, hey, I add more value. It's my brand name, it's my quality, it's whatever it is. I deserve 20 cents more than Safeway Select is getting. So by understanding what Safeway Select is selling for, Del Monte can then set their price. And by the way, the same thing works backwards, where Safeway Select could say, hey, here's what Del Monte's charging. I don't have as much quality, as good a brand name, I have to charge a lower price, here's where it's going to be. What's really important for us is to understand what's the differentiation between our product and our competitors' products. And then once we know what our competitors are charging, we can then figure out how much we should be charging. So in the end, we have to know our competitors' pricing if we're going to price correctly for the marketplace and how much our customers are willing to pay.
All right. We have just a couple minutes left, so we'll do one more question, and then we'll move forward. This person asks, when is the right price free?
When is the right price free? Okay, so the right price is free when you can make money some other way. So the one thing about free that's funny is that you can never make money at free itself. But we talked about freemium, and we can use free products to build a network and then sell upgrades to some of those people. We can use free products. So we all watch TV, or at least we used to watch network TV for free, and that's because they could sell advertising to advertisers. So we can think about free anytime we can make money somewhere else. In most situations, our customers want free. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's really true. Most people would rather get something for free than pay even a penny for it, and there's a dramatic difference in that respect. So if you can create a business model where you can give something away for free that your competitors are charging for, and then find ways to make money by selling something else, then that's probably a really good business model. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. If you recall, we talked about the 3 key takeaways. Number 1, know your value and charge for it. And your value is different based on whether your customers are making will-I decisions and then buying, or whether they're making that which one decision. How much value are you creating relative to your competition? Let's make sure we segment our pricing. We can segment our pricing and charging different customers different prices using things like what are their customer characteristics, information about the transactions, putting behavioral hurdles in front of them, or having different products, especially the good, better, best type strategies. And then make sure we have that product portfolio, both versions and complements that help us put even more revenue in our product. And so as we wrap this up today, here's some next steps. We've got a brand new ebook out called Pricing Is. You can get that for free on pragmaticmarketing.com. I write a blog. I try to write it weekly. I'm not always making it weekly, but I try. You can get that on pragmaticpricing.com. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And then finally, we just released a new price course. We've got 2 public classes available in July in San Francisco and Boston, and there's some others that are following on. Feel free to check our website out to figure out if any of those fit your schedule and if you're interested. What we do in the price course is each of the 3 topics we just talked about today, we go into a lot more detail and depth, give you an opportunity to figure out how they apply to your company and your situation. And we also talk about many, many more pricing issues throughout the day. So, Rebecca?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Next month's webinar is Dogs and Cats, How Product Management Can Work with UX Designers to Create Good Products. So I hope you join us for there. You'll be able to download the recording and the slides at pragmaticmarketing.com/live by the end of the day. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next month.